The movie opens in a cattle farmhouse in rural Texas, the home of an old couple. We see an old lady sewing clothes when she hears a sound. She goes out to check the barn, where the goats look scared. She does not find anyone, and goes back inside to check on her bedridden husband. Then, she starts to write when she hears a wolf outside. She also hears the bottles and steel items hung at the entrance of the barn make noise. The goats get scared, and start to move around here and there. The lady checks on the goats, and we see a shadow in their midst. Later, when the old lady makes the food, we can sense that someone comes and sits behind her. When she turns around to look, there is no one there. The next day, the couple's daughter Louise comes over to check on her father, who we discover is in a coma. Her mother tells her that her brother had also come over a while ago. The old lady does not want her children to be there, and tells Louise to go away as they do not need any help. Louise does not like this, and we also see a nurse in the room who looks after her father in the morning. Shortly, when Louise heads back, she comes across her brother Michael and his servant Charlie. They are seen fixing the car. Louise talks with Michael and says that their mother is acting weirdly. Hence, they should not leave them alone. Michael and Louise then decide to live with their parents. Later at night, all of them have dinner together. Their mother says that they should not have come. Both Michael and Louise get surprised by their mother's attitude and talk amongst themselves, trying to look for reasons for such behavior by their mother. They come up with the theory that their mother is stressed because of their father's illness. Also, she does not have any support, which is why she is behaving this way. After a while, both of them go inside. Louise notices that the door of the house opens on its own. She thinks that the door opened because of the wind and closes it. Shortly, her mother arrives and Louise tells her about the door. Upon hearing Louise's story, her mother starts looking at the door as if someone is standing there. The next day, Michael tries to talk to his mother and asks about her problem. However, the mother does not reply and seems to hide it. Michael gets angry with his mother for not telling him the issue and leaves. After a while, someone comes and sits with her mother while she cuts the vegetable. She gets angry and cuts her fingers off. The next morning, when Louise and Michael get up, they get scared to see their mother's fingers in the kitchen. They start to look for her and end up finding her. Both grieve the loss of their mother, but are unable to understand the reason for their mother. They also get worried because now their father is their responsibility. After a few moments, the nurse arrives and comforts them. She tells Michael and Louise that their mother used to talk to someone often, when in reality there used to be no one. She also says that their mother used to whisper something into their father's ear and leave. Hearing this story shocks Michael and Louise. They decide to send their father to the hospital so better care can be given to him. Afterwards, Michael and Louise start cattle farming themselves. However, both of them are still curious to know to whom did their mother talk to. Louise says that they should try to find out, but Michael stops her from doing so because according to them their mother had. According to Michael, there is a negative energy in their house. Later at night, when Louise is taking a bath, she sees her father with blank white eyes. She gets scared, but her father vanishes. She tells all of this to Michael, but Michael does not believe her. As Michael leaves the room, he comes across a book. He picks up the book and takes it outside. It turns out that it is their mother's diary. Michael reads the diary to Louise. Their mother had written that she needed help because the devil would take her husband as it needs his soul. After reading the diary, both of them are surprised. They start to believe that there is an entity in the house. The next day, Michael and Louise go to the hospital to collect their mother's body. The doctor tells them that he found a lot of crosses in their mother's pocket. They are surprised to see the crosses because their mother was not a Christian and she never went to church. At night, when Louise is with her father, she sees a spider coming out of his mouth. Louise gets scared and tells Michael about it. Later, when Michael goes off to bed, the light in his room gets switched on automatically. He gets out of bed to switch it off. As he switches the light off, it again switches on. He hears a voice outside the window. When he looks outside the window, he sees his mother meditating with an evil smile on her face. He gets scared and then sees his mother standing behind him. After a few seconds, his mother disappears. The following day, when Louise gets up, she sees lipstick all over her face. After cleaning her face, she checks her father's bed and gets surprised to see the lipstick in his bed. She is unable to believe this, as her father is in a coma and is unable to move. Looking at all the events, she understands that all of this is done by the devil. At that moment, the phone rings. Louise picks it up, and to her surprise, it is her mother. She hears her mother's voice telling her again that they should not have come. Meanwhile, Michael meets a priest on his way. The priest tells Michael that their mother used to visit him often. Michael invites the priest to their home and shows him their mother's diary. The priest tells Michael that their mother was alone, and he was a source of comfort for their mother in times of loneliness. He also says to Michael that he can help them too. Listening to the priest, Michael tells him to leave. Michael believes that the priest put the thought of the devil in their mother's mind. Due to this, she went insane and took. The priest also says that their parents were alone, and this was the reason the devil slaughtered her. As the priest is leaving, Michael asks him about the devil, and he says that the devil is already in the house. At night, when Louise goes to the cattle barn, the bottles hanging at the front start to make a noise. She calls out to see who is there, but we see a shadow behind her. Afterwards, when both the siblings sit together, Louise asks Michael if their mother saw something in reality. Michael tells Louise about seeing their mother flying in the air from the window. Louise gets scared, and they go off to sleep. Later at night, someone starts to bang at their door. Louise looks out of the window and sees the priest standing outside. The priest tells Louise to open the door. Once they open the door, the priest calls them to be near him. When Louise flashes the light on his face, his eyes are white. Suddenly, the phone rings, and meanwhile, the priest disappears. Michael tells Louise not to answer the phone, and Louise disconnects the phone by taking out the wire. On the other hand, we see Charlie trying to call them. He hears a noise outside. He loads his gun and comes outside to check. Surprisingly, it is an entity in the form of Louise standing there, saying something in a strange voice, and Charlie asks her what she wants, and she whispers something into his ears. Charlie says that he did this to her, and then she makes. The following day, Michael asks Louise if Charlie knows the priest he spoke to. Louise informs him that she has been trying to contact Charlie for the past 2 days, but he is not answering the phone. After some time, Louise calls the number given to her by the priest. However, the person who picks up the phone says that he does not know her and he has never been to Texas. He also says that he had a daughter, Louise, and that her voice sounds exactly like her. Louise gets horrified hearing that person on the phone. To save their father, Michael and Louise call a doctor at home to shift him to the hospital. However, the doctor says that their father is on his last breaths and he might pass away on the way. Then, Michael is seen working in the barn when one of the injured goats comes to him. When Michael and Louise follow the goat, they come across multiple goats being slaughtered. Louise says that the wolves could not have done this, and Michael says that tomorrow he will call another doctor. Louise repeats that their mother told them not to come here. Afterwards, both of them light a bonfire and dispose of the bodies of the goats. Later, Michael takes care of the remaining goats when he receives a call from his wife. When he answers the phone, he senses someone there. Then, he hears the voice of his mother and sees his mother moving towards him. Michael gets very scared to see her, but she comes straight to him and the next moment she disappears. Then, suddenly she appears from behind him. She tries to force him to, but Michael resists her and survives. On the other hand, Louise is seen fast asleep in her father's room when we see someone entering his room. The entity wakes her up with his voice. He then climbs into the bed and starts to hurt her father. Seeing all this, Louise gets horrified. When she turns back to check on her father, she sees no one, but she is in for a surprise. She sees her father hanging against the ceiling. It is revealed that it is Louise's nightmare. After some time, a girl comes to their home and introduces herself as Charlie's granddaughter. She informs Louise about Charlie's passing. Hearing about the loss of Charlie makes Louise very sad. But before she can say anything, she hears her father coughing. She calls the girl inside. However, the sad, lonely girl turns out to be malicious. It is actually the entity that has taken the shape of Charlie's granddaughter. Louise runs inside to check on her father, but when she returns, she sees the girl disappear before her eyes. Then, the girl appears behind her and moves towards Louise, and suddenly she again appears by her side. Louise loses consciousness and faints. When Louise gets up, she finds the nurse in her house. The nurse has brought a religious candle, which she puts in the father's room. Then, Louise calls Michael from the landline. Michael tells Louise that the devil tried to murder him, due to which he ran to save his life. He also says that he will never return to the barn and shall go back to be with his wife and children. Hearing her brother's words, Louise starts to cry. On the other hand, the devil possesses the nurse in the father's room. Then she attacks Louise, who faints. Later, the nurse eyes with pins. Michael goes to his house, where his family have already been taken. Seeing his family's corpses, Michael loses control and the devil possesses him. And he starts to bleed. When Michael is about to pass away, his family disappears in front of him. It is revealed that it was the devil's trick to get Michael's soul. In reality, Michael's wife and children were alive, and we see them coming inside. Looking at Michael, they all start to cry. Back at the farmhouse, Louise gets up and sees the nurse. Instead of running away from the house, she goes to her father and promises to stay with him till the end. Just then, her father takes a long last breath, and she hears Michael screaming. As she turns around, the devil possesses her father's body and attacks Louise. With this, the movie ends.